Morning, everybody. If you would, please come in and have a seat, and we'll begin our meeting. I'm going to ask Dean Green to open us up with a word of prayer. When I talked to him this morning, I asked him to be sure and put a little emphasis on patience today. So, Dean?
He did ask me to say that, and he also said for those members on the wall that the plate will be passed directly after. Let us pray. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you that we have you and the light of your Spirit to guide us today. And we find, O Lord, that we have a great task before us. And we do pray for that patience. And we pray that when we leave here, that your will have been done. We thank you that we may live in the moment of your Spirit, that we will take each moment and know that it is important in the lives of individuals. And as we serve the people of this day, let us be mindful of our duties and responsibilities. And Father, we just pray that you will be with us each step of the way today. Bless us now, Father. Guide us and direct us in all things. And we just pray this in thy holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Dean. Before we get started this morning, I'd like to recognize the leader of illustration. He wants to make an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, in addition to this being a very exciting day due to it being Sine Die, we also have a special day because it is Leo Chansey's birthday, the incredible. Leo, just want to thank you for your great work making the Rules Committee run so effectively, assisting the chairman, and hope you have a great birthday.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. You can't say enough about Leo and Ms. Lewis and Dan in our office up there. They really have done a terrific job for us. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to call the Rules Standing Committee to order right now, and we're going to recognize Chairman Anderson to explain House Resolution 885.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Resolution 885 is a resolution calling for a House Study Committee to look at the elections procedures in the state of Georgia. As I took over the responsibility of chairing our Governmental Affairs Committee, which I've sat on for the previous 4 years, and I know that we've done a lot of work in elections to promote integrity. We've had some seeing increased participation, increased confidence in our elections, but I do feel like it's time for this body to study the procedures, the policies, and everything around our elections process in this state to determine how to proceed and go forward with legislation in the future. And Mr. Chairman, I would ask for the committee's favorable consideration.
Okay, got a couple of questions for you. Whip Park?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Anderson, have we ever done study committees before filing or passing, enacting some of these omnibus election bills, whether it's SB 202 or others? And can you recall when is the last year in which we did not pass legislation that impacts our elections? Because again, I think my understanding and concern to a certain extent is, we are doing all these things without necessarily understanding the impact of some of these rules, in which I think it may be, I recognize the intent of this, but this also gives me concern, quite frankly, as to, what this may result in, given all the past actions that for some members in my community, they've been, harmed to a certain extent.
Okay, and thank you for that question. And the question basically gets to the whole intent of this committee. This is my 5th year serving in this body, and in the 5 years I've been here, we have looked at and attempted many elections, law changes, and considered many bills. In the time that I've been here, I'm not aware of a study committee. I do know that Senate Bill 202 came from a special committee on election integrity, which looked in depth at the concepts that were proposed in that bill and eventually passed into law. So I do think it's high time that we take a close look at the entire procedure.
Okay, we have a question, Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the chairman at the podium. It seems to me that if a study committee is just going to have members of the legislature, which this one proposes, then it would make more sense for the standing committee to just have a series of meetings. But since there seems to be a desire to have a study committee, would you be opposed to amendments to direct that there also be members of the committee that are not legislators, and that we make sure, for example, some that I'm thinking of would be election board chairs or election board members from our counties, and making sure that we spread those out between Metro, Middle, North, and South Georgia. Also, perhaps some lawyers who specialize in election law, and there may be other stakeholders that we want to include. Would you be amenable to such amendments?
I, of course, am amenable to the will of the committee, and the intent of this was to have the speaker select amongst the House of Representatives the members he would prefer to see in this, of course, with consultation. So to your question directly, I'm standing here presenting this at the request and at the will of the committee.
Thank you.
Okay, Leader Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was getting to my question as to why the committee couldn't just study it on its own. But since I do have the mic, I would like to ask the chair to think about not imposing new rules in an election year, because we do want citizens to participate and not be confused about what the election procedures and laws are. So that would be the only thing that I request. Also, I would request that possibly making an amendment such that there would be equal representation on this committee of the minority, so that we can have all perspectives at the table when we do this deep dive.
Okay, Pro Tem Jones had a question.
Yes, would you say, Mr. Chairman, that it is most common with House study committees that they are comprised of most of legislators, not non-legislators, and then you rely on the very persons that have been suggested from all walks of life that could give input but would not be officially on the committee, so that you would have more flexibility?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question, and I would agree with that. The study committees I have served on and chaired in the past have been comprised of all House members. However, the intent of the study committee is not necessarily with a predetermined end game, is to study the subject matter, to accept testimony from the experts. And my fear is, if we invite outside experts or particular bodies, we're going to leave people out, and we're going to leave a perspective out. The best option is to have the legislative body as the committee, and then the testimony comes from those people. So, thank you.
Chairman Martin.
Mr. Chairman, isn't it true that there are many things that are involved in the election process that don't directly interface with the public? And isn't it true that I've received many calls, and I think you and I have spoken about the logistics of the back office of how the ballots get from one place to be counted, and the security of the ballots before and after the counting? Isn't that what you're talking about in lines 5 through 8, that those things are not public facing but very important to the public? Isn't that not what you're trying to do here?
Okay, we've heard the explanation of the presentation on House Resolution 885. Do I hear a motion to pass? Have a motion to pass and a second. Is there opposition? Excuse me? Okay, what's your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask the committee to consider 2 amendments, and I can put them in one motion or 2.
Put them together.
Okay, I'll make
Please.
it easier. On lines 20, between the word representatives and as determined, insert the words with equal numbers from majority and minority parties, but otherwise. So the sentence would read, the committee shall be composed of a number of members of the House of Representatives with equal numbers from the majority and minority parties, but otherwise as determined and appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And then the second part of the amendment would be to insert after that period, the sentence, the speaker shall also appoint citizen members representing at least the following: 3 election board chairs representing Metro, North, South, and Middle Georgia counties. And the purpose of the First Amendment, Mr. Chairman and members, is that unlike a lot of study committees, I think it's even more important that we have equal representation among the parties, because we're dealing with elections and we want there to be integrity in the process. We want to ensure absolute fairness. We want to ensure that the public accepts the results not as a partisan effort, but as a joint bipartisan effort. And then the reason for the county election board members is that we do so much that ultimately becomes the job of these individuals. And so while sometimes, and I expect this committee would hear testimony from all sorts of stakeholders, we would want these county election board chairs from these various types of counties to be represented so they could be involved in the entirety of the discussion and make sure that they get all their questions answered and perspectives considered, so we don't put undue burden on them. And I know I have served on study committees where, like, for example, on higher education, we had representatives from both TCSG and the Regents. So this is certainly not unorthodox, and I would say is disrespectful, the fact that we'll be passing potentially talking about changes that will impact them. And so I would move that as a motion for the consideration of the committee.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Okay, now we'll have any other discussion on that? Okay, we will vote on the motion. All those in favor of adding the amendment to the resolution will say yes. Yes. All those opposed will say no. No. Noes have it. Okay. Now we're back to the motion to do pass out of the committee on House Resolution 885. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. It carries. So it will come out of the committee with a do pass recommendation. All right. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to adjourn the Rules Standing Committee and convene the Committee on Rules that will set the calendar for day 40. One item of housekeeping. I would like to have a motion on Senate Bill 260 that it be returned to committee. Be recommitted. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's back in the committee. Okay. Now we're ready to take requests. Yes, ma'am, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Happy Sine Die.
Yes, ma'am.
We're here. We're finally here. I am here to represent Senate Bill 91. It's on the 3rd page up at the top. And what this bill does is it melds 2 measures together. I bring before you the measure that was adopted March 6th through the House, and it stalled over in the Senate. This is a supplemental Medigap bill for patients with Lou Gehrig's and end-stage renal disease. Helps them to be qualified for Medicare. They're under 65, and then that way they can buy Medigap insurance for transplant, kidney transplant. The other piece to this is a measure that helps men under 65 be able to have prostate exams and some education attached to that.
Okay, got a question for you. Representative Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author here, just a question. Did you research and see whether or not this bill singled out pharmacists or how it looks over the board?
It won't affect the pharmacists at all. This is just Medicare for people under 65, and then the prostate piece is for under 65 too. But it doesn't affect pharmacy or the drug piece to Medicare.
Okay. Don't see any other questions. Thank you.
It is a substitute, yes.
Did you have another one?
Pardon me? No, sir. That was
That's
the
it.
two
Thank you.
pieces. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I've got SB 179. It's on page 3 toward the bottom. This bill will require students to take a computer science class or a CTAE course embedded with computer science beginning in the 2031-32 school year. It changes the reimbursement cost of tuition for the Georgia Virtual School because that has not been adjusted since 2012. And it requires private online virtual schools to report enrollment of students to the student's home school district. This is so we can better track chronic absenteeism. And this is LC 492411S.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Representative Al.
Good morning. I'm here to present H.R. 304, which proposes a House Study Committee to look at the healthcare costs of smoking. I want to first in particular thank some of the co-sponsors who are here who have supported this issue for at least the past 5 years, including Drs. Newton and Hawkins, Chair Cooper, Chair Stevens, Dean Green, and also across the hallway, Senators Albers, Huffstetler, and Robertson. So what this study committee would aim to do is look at the costs incurred by the significant burden of smoking in this state. This could include looking at Medicaid costs to both Medicare and private insurance, also looking at geographic and demographic distribution and variability in how these costs are incurred and borne. Also impacts on the workforce, impacts on children, asthma rates, school absenteeism, and if it is the will of the committee, to look at also the healthcare costs of vapes, which as we know is more borne in younger patients. Ideally, we would identify areas for intervention and for cost saving and also possible revenue generation for the state. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, I don't see any questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm asking for Senate Bill 101, page 3, under modified structure. And Senate Bill 101, it's my original House Bill 87 language that we passed almost unanimously, minus 2 votes. It allows those who need orthotics and prosthetics to be able to get additional ones so they can do just simple things like go shower. And so it got kind of late over in the Senate, and so the sponsor let me take out his original language, put mine in. I'll be glad to answer any questions on that one.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you.
I have one more. House Resolution 817. It's a House Study Committee on drones. Another bill we passed out. Get the bill number. And this would it got held up in the Senate, and this would just dig more into drones, national security, keeping our communities safe, and just ask for House Resolution 817. Any questions?
I have a question for you, Leader Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On your 101, what was your bill number that we're replacing here?
House Bill 87. That was the orthotics, prosthetics. Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. This is for House Resolution 753. It's a House study, putting together a House study on improving access to internal medicine in rural areas, with the challenges in those areas being getting health care into the rural areas consistently, getting doctors into the rural areas consistently, and perhaps being able to bring a mobile unit in and see what that looks like.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you,
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'll be asking for a committee sub on Senate Bill 10. It'll be LC 481626S. What that simply does is codifies and clarifies the way that judicial officers are selected and appointed in judicial circuits that have at least 15 Superior Court judges. Passed the Judiciary Committee unanimously.
Okay, don't see any questions.
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman. Ask for your favorable consideration.
Chairman Gullett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm asking for a committee sub for Senate Bill 218. Rules Committee sub 218. This is cleaned up language for the Prosecuting Attorneys Qualifications Commission. What it does is it moves, I'll take the highlights. It moves the commission from the PAC, Prosecuting Attorneys Council to the AOC, Administrative Office of Courts, to solve some conflict of interest issues. It clears up that a state employee, the DA or judge, who is on one of the panels may be reimbursed by their office or by the PAQC for meetings, but not by both. It cleans up that the rules were not approved and adopted until April 1st, 2024, so the cases that they're hearing won't be before that process or that time period. It fixes that they hired an executive director where the law actually says director. It clarifies the appeals process, says that it starts with the PAQC, then is appealable to the Superior Court, the Appellate Court, then the Supreme Court. And then lastly, it modifies the confidentiality for the DAs and Solicitor Generals so that they can find out about complaints made against them but dismissed before reaching the public stage. It also specifically addresses their concern that if a complainant publicizes that they filed with the PAQC, that they can tell the DA or the solicitor what's going on so that they can respond publicly. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do have a question, Chairman Lindstrom.
I had received a call from some of the sheriffs regarding one portion of this, I guess that last section. Are you familiar with their concern?
Yeah, so this is why big reason why we're doing the amendment in committee. It was amended and this it was added to all lawyers in good standing could carry a gun in the court. We've adjusted it back to the way the Senate had it originally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, don't see any more questions.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, you read that yesterday's report. It's a pretty thick report you got to report on this morning.
It was. My people are still going over it, but yeah, it was a lengthy journal yesterday, so hope to have it done by 10 o'clock. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, honored to present House Resolution 816 on page 2 of the blue sheet. This creates a study committee with two focus areas. Number one, creating an abuse registry for our at-risk populations, and number two, how to improve service delivery of state resources to individuals with disabilities.
Okay. Don't see any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any members of the committee? Chairlady Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. I'd like to ask for House Resolution 847, and this is to do a House Study Committee on the funding for public health. And it's just, we put a lot of stress on our public health, and we want to make sure they're getting the funds they need.
Okay. Chairman Martin, you have a request? Go ahead. Yeah.
House Resolution 429. As we passed earlier this year, the move toward next generation 911 in Georgia is going to have an extended expense. Landline phones are going one way, so we would suggest we would look at how to fund that system in the go forward in the future for Georgia.
Okay. Thank you. Chairman Blackman.
Resolution 887, which would help evaluate our education code and kind of look at the cumulative burden and what maybe we can do to clean up any obsolete measures that are impacting our public schools. So I thank Chairman Irwin for his help with this.
Okay. Chairman Newton, do you have a request?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I bring H.R. 593 near at the bottom. It's a House Studies Committee to look at both maternal care, prenatal care, and pediatric care, neonatal, including the transfer arrangements, making sure which ones are the right size that are long-term sustainable, and how we fund these in such a way that that strengthens care, in particular across rural Georgia and some challenging areas.
Okay. Chairlady Dempsey.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. House Resolution 611, a House Study Committee for children who are abandoned while in the hospital or in a psychiatric hospital to work on finding the proper placement for these children.
Okay, no question. Chairman Irvin.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Bottom of the first page, House Resolution 711.
studying chronic absenteeisms since COVID. Chronic absenteeism is at what I'll tell you all-time high of over 22% of our students.
Okay. Let's see. Leader Illustration, you had a request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to present proposed committee substitute SB 207. This legislation deals with licensing boards' consideration of criminal histories. What this substitute would do would narrow the bill to firefighters who may have criminal histories, would allow the board to consider the circumstances of those past criminal convictions. It's in the spirit of criminal justice reform, but it's a very narrowly tailored bill to the area of firefighters. That's for the committee's favorable consideration.
Okay. Chairman Powell, was your light on?
I'd like to ask for SB 204. It's a substitute, came over from the Senate, deals with criminal procedures that the DAs may use accusations other than the grand jury on certain offenses that aren't serious, violent felonies, sexual offenses, and some of those types. Second part of this is we're bumping up the preemption requirements on Second Amendment laws to put teeth back into that seems to be eroding. And the substitute's on the desk.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Let's set a calendar for today, day 40. Under modified open, House Resolution 347.
Move.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition? It's on. Okay. Under modified structure, Senate Bill 10 by substitute, that's LC 1626S.
Move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition? It's on. Senate Bill 101.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. Senate Bill 179.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. Senate Bill 204 by substitute, LC 492425S.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any opposition? Have an objection. On Senate Bill 204 by substitute, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Ayes carry. Senate Bill 207 by substitute, LC 590181S.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. Senate Bill 218 by substitute, LC 492424S.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. Okay, that'll get us started today. Y'all have a good day, and we're adjourned.